All right, it's time. We're waiting for Vince to get back to his seat. We're ready to go. All right, welcome. Calling this meeting to order, the best Rotary Club in the universe. We have an invocation. Daryl Skiles, you keep somehow getting called up for this, but we appreciate it.
Our Father in heaven, we bow before thee this beautiful day and thank thee for the opportunity of gathering together as friends and guests. We're grateful for all the blessings that thou bestows upon us in our community. We do ask a special blessing upon those who are having challenges in Texas and New Mexico and other areas of our country, as well as those in the Middle East and those in Ukraine and Russia. Pray that their hearts will be turned to softened hearts that will bring them to come to a peaceful solution of their challenges. Thank thee for the food that thou hast prepared for us. And pray that thou will bless it to those who partook, and that we might enjoy our association together and do so in the name of thy Son. Amen.
All right, thank you. Our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And our four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And Christine, do we have a song?
I'm just going to start it, and I forgot that I made myself a song person. So in honor of the Big Dumper winning the home run derby, we're going to sing Take Me Out to the Ball Game. All right, take me out
to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Bison and peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever go back. So it's root for the Mariners. They don't win, it's a shame. Or it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. All right, thank you. Let's go ahead and have a seat. Let's see, do we have any visiting Rotarians today? Any visiting Rotarians? All right, and not seeing any visiting Rotarians. Guests of Rotarians other than spouses today, any guests? No, all right. And we're going right on to club business, and we're going to start right away with club business. Yulia, would you like to take it away with anniversaries?
Such a special month, July. We have so many couples celebrating their anniversary. We have Charlie and Jessica Bush, and Josh and Amy Requa, Stephanie and Greg Buckner, Rod and Victoria Hall, Adrian and Pamela Santangelo. We wish them a very happy anniversary wherever they are, celebrating, gallivanting the world, and having the best month of their year, having anniversary in July. What a beautiful summer. And we have couples and representatives who are here to celebrate it together with us at the Rotary Club. And I went too far away from my table, so I'm going to start with Dawn. Dawn and Jill.
Yeah, we've been together 18 years. The last couple of years, the health has gone a little sour, but we've done a lot of traveling to Guatemala, to New York on the train, to Alaska 4 times, 1 by highway. In May, we took the ferry to Skagway and back. So we've been busy.
Please take the rose back to Joan. Happy anniversary, you guys. And I will find myself an anniversary person, I'm sure, somewhere at this table. I just might.
My wife Rhonda are celebrating 32 years next week. She's off in California right now. So our son and a daughter and 1 grandson. Everything's great.
Happy anniversary. My goodness, I've got so many over here.
I'm here with Ellen, and we've been married for 9 years, right? Did I have that right? Yeah? Okay, just making sure. That was the only thing I had to get right, so that's pretty good. So everything's great. We're heading to Austin here in a couple of weeks. Got a grandbaby coming, so yeah, all's well. August 1st.
Happy,
We're going to celebrate our anniversary on August 30th July 30th in Austin with barbecue for Mike and grilled vegetables for me.
fantastic. Happy anniversary, you guys. That's an anniversary table right there.
Oh, wise decision, wise decision.
So Vince and I are celebrating, or did celebrate on the 6th, 23 years of pure marital bliss. We have 2 children, both of whom Shelby's going to go into to Western, and apparently Hunter is planning on following her for the winter quarter this year, so that's cool. No grandchildren, and we hope not to have any for a long time. And I'm just glad to still be married after last year.
Happy anniversary.
Grandma Ruth sounds good.
So the day after Ruth and Vince were married 23 years ago, on July 6th, Michael and I met down at the Timberline on July 7th, and we instantly and fell madly in love on that day. So surprisingly, my mom and dad had a similar story. They didn't meet at the Timberline, but they met the first day of classes at WSU summer school, and they were married 37 days after they met. They were happily married for 27 years. Michael and I had a different path. We had to wait 4,015 days to get married, which is exactly 11 years. We married on the anniversary of the day we met, which was a Sunday as well. So we're having a great time. We're hoping we'll still be married, and every year we hope we are still married. We just never know. And let me tell you, it's one of the weirdest feelings to know that your marriage may be stripped from you. So just be happy that you don't have that problem to deal with. I'm very, very serious about that, because we're looking for a lot of things, from our marriage, because it's so easy and we love being married. The best thing we like to do, well, we'd like to do other things too, but filing our taxes jointly as a married couple is something that we weren't able to do for many, many years. And so we're so proud as American citizens to do that. So are you going to stick with me for a little longer? Until I retire. Right, great. And thank you all for your love and support. We are so happy to be here.
Happy anniversary. Oh, thank you. And we have a beautiful rose for this couple over here. Yes. You take this and you take this.
All right. This is my bride, Sarah. We've been married. I had to get this upside down. We've been married 17 years on the 19th. So we have, oh, there we go. Sandra got one, 17. We have 2 boys currently at Camp Lutherwood this week. So been off. We went whale watching on Tuesday and putting in hay today. So Sarah said yesterday, those who hay together stay together.
Happy anniversary, you guys. How special. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Before we move on with some more club business, Mark Nielsen, front and center, please. He looks surprised. You just missed the other day when we gave out the perfect attendance awards, and it's been sitting up here waiting for you. So presented to Mark Nielsen in recognition of your devotion to Rotary and its principles as exemplified by 3 years of perfect attendance. Thank goodness for Rusty Zipper.
So I get this, I'm absent today, I'm supposed to get this?
There we go. All right. And moving on with a little bit of the rest of club business. Ruth got the club booklets ordered. We got the order placed. Did you remember how long they said that would take? Yeah, but they've just been ordered just this last week after a lot of going back and forth and getting everything right. I'm sure as soon as you get them, you'll find something. Tell Ruth immediately because she wants to know those things. But we had our board meeting on the 8th, and just a little recap of some of the things that we did. We have the Reading and Resources event coming up on the 21st. We approved paying for books up to $2,000, and Christine's going to be working on that for getting our books for that. Very successful event. If you've not been to it, it's worthwhile going. The happy little faces going around and getting carton handfuls of books and backpacks and all sorts of stuff is great. We are sponsoring a hole at the Evergreen Golf Racing Funds event. That's a $250 approval to sponsor a hole. And the final thing is we approved the Sedro Woolley Boys and Girls Club summer camp request. And I've got Steve writing a check for that, and I'll be presenting that. I got to come by Ruth's office and get the great big check for the photo op. And then moving on out of that, we're looking at some other announcements. Chris Rothenbuehler, you had an announcement. If we can get the mic to Chris.
Just a reminder that the summer concert series starts this Sunday from 6 to 8. Got some great things lined up. Beer Garden is actually going to be run by the Sedro Woolley Eagles for the first 2 weeks. We're going to have the hula hoops back. So yeah, not with my sister, but a new group, and they are amazing. So we made up a bunch of hula hoops the other night. That was a lot of fun. We will have a teen zone set up and all roped off. Sedro Woolley Rise is going to be involved this year, which I'm really excited about. We'll have them kind of up on the top of the hill, away from the playgrounds and stuff, so the little ones aren't trying to butt in. But they're going to have some amazing information about all what they do. We'll have some great vendors. The music, it's going to be Mara and the Charm. They are incredible. Sponsors voted them in. They were the top choice. So yeah, please. Everybody, I'm hoping to see at least everybody once at one of the shows. So I'll hold you to that. So this Sunday, 6 to 8. I do have some little flyers I'll leave before I take off. And I do have a couple more posters if anybody knows of any places that need one. So see you Sunday.
And Brian, can you bring the mic up here to Carl?
I would let everybody know that we've donated to Disaster Aid USA several times in the past, and they were out in full force in the Texas floods with all kind of skid steers, tractors, backhoes, grapples on their tractors. They were saving lives and restoring all of the mess out there. So I don't know if we want to continue to support them. Maybe would it be okay to have a show of hands to see if we want to give them $1,000 for their good work? We like that idea. Okay, I haven't talked to the board about it, but I'll put it forth as a request. I think it's a great charity. It's run by Rotarians, all volunteers. They have very low overhead for what they do. So it's a great way that we can give back.
Got it. We may just do an email request out to the board, and we'll figure it out. Do you have the point of contact for sending that? And just to let you know, Keith Wagner got a hold of me just the other day with the same request too. So, and then moving on with announcements, we have a Rotary night at the ballpark. I put a couple of flyers up on the table. I had to put them up there after the wind kept blowing them off. For July 28th, Rotary night up at the Bellingham Bells at the Joe Martin Stadium, and there's flyers on the table if you're interested. And so last night we had the League of Women Voters come in and put on a candidates forum for the Hospital District 304, City Council position, and School Board. And I want to thank all the people that stepped up to first put that on, and the candidates that stepped up and gave it their time and are wanting to engage in the community. It was very impressive to see everybody up there. But if Carl DeYoung was here today, I don't see Carl out in the crowd. I was going to fine him $1 for being, front and center on that. And his wife Ellen is up there for Hospital District 304. I was going to fine Carl DeYoung $1 for Ellen being up there as well. And also, who's on our Rusty Zipper group? Could you stand up or put your hands up? All right, that's $1 too, because Jim Callio was up there. He's not a Rotary member, but he got up there and made his presentation as well. So I got my $1 on the table too. Really do appreciate all the candidates that got up there and talked and just put themselves forward. And one other thing I added to my club business, talked to Cheryl right before the meeting, and we've had a couple of people wondering about any other food items that we might want to have for different lunches. So next week at our meeting, I'm going to just hopefully have some cards laid out. People can write down some notes, some suggestions, some requests, and we'll see if we want to add anything to our regular meal rotation. She's asked for this a couple of times, and we'd like to get some ideas of what to do. I know we've struggled with getting food or people in to fix our food in the past. I remember David going out and buying pizzas for one meeting. We want to just keep this thing, we want to keep getting fed. So there we go. Brian, do we have a raffle?
We sure do have a raffle. So let's do it. Is everybody ready? Good. First number is, I don't know why I spun that. I'm new to this, everyone bear with me. But first number is 21, 21, 21. I'm really good at spinning the wheel. I just had a practice shot if you need me to do it for you. Yep. Or you can pick if you'd like. That was a really good one. Almost as good as mine. What'd you get? Oliver and Hammer. Cool surprise. And that surprise is a surprise. Mark will get that to you. I'm going to. All right, next number is 34, 34. Sure, sure, sure. I've heard that one before. All right, next number, 68, 68. Welcome. And we've got some wine. Your choice. Or you can cry about something. We'll call that a wine also. That's a pun?
All right.
You're welcome. Good there?
Good to go. Yep. Good to go. Who's our sergeant at arms?
He
That's
also.
you. Ready to roll.
All right. Happy bucks. Is that what we're doing or are we doing finding? All right. We're finding first. All right. So I did some research about July 17th, and there's some fun facts about today, and we're going to find some people based off of it. So if you didn't know, today is National Lottery Day. So if you did not buy a raffle ticket today, you can pay $1. We're going to get you one way or the other. I need a volunteer to answer a question. Who wants to volunteer? All right, Carl. I knew it was going to be Carl. All right, Carl. Today is National Peach Ice Cream Day. What is the main ingredient in peach ice cream?
I'm going to guess cream.
Ah, bummer. He got it. I thought that was going to be a trick question. All right. Nobody has to pay. Today is National Tattoo Day. If you have a tattoo, you can pay $1. If it's visible, you get to pay $2. Happy National Tattoo Day. I thought there would be a lot more money going in on that one at this table. Okay, all right. In 1955, in Anaheim, California, Disneyland was opened on July 17th. If you have never been to Disneyland, you probably need to save your money. Don't pay anything. If you've been to Disneyland, you can pay $1. If you've been to Disneyland, if you haven't been there, keep that money in your wallet. Save up for a Disneyland trip. All right, if you were supposed to do the raffle today, but you pawned it off on your team members, you can pay as much money as you possibly can. I'm just kidding. You can pay $2. All right. And last one, I need another volunteer to answer a question for everybody else. Who wants it? Oh, man. All right, there we go. All right. Near and dear to my heart, near and dear to everybody's heart today, this time of year, in 1902, a man by the name of Willis Carrier invented something. What was it that he invented?
Air conditioning.
Very good. You won. Way to cheat. All right. Hey, American air conditioning. If you don't have air conditioning, you don't have to pay anything, but just I'll give you my card later. Just kidding. All right. That's all I got for today. Thanks.
All right. Do we have any happy bucks?
I have a happy 5. Last couple of weeks, I was reminded the importance of family. My daughter and my 2 oldest grandchildren and I went to Ireland and then over to Brussels and Amsterdam. Had a great time. And then we went fishing with our buddies shortly thereafter, and I'm totally beat up. And the other part of this story, though, is that through ancestry, I discovered a second cousin who is the granddaughter of my grandfather's brother. And she, at the time, lived in Colorado, which is where our family comes from. But interestingly enough, she actually grew up in California. But about a year ago, she decided to move. And of all places she moved to Kerrville, Texas. She lives on a hill and she's doing fine, and I'm happy about that.
I got a happy 50. This last Saturday, we had a wedding in my backyard, and our youngest daughter, Madeline, was married. It was a small little affair for family only, 50 plus people, all aunts, uncles, cousins, the whole bit. It was a beautiful day, absolutely beautiful day. The party lasted until the wee hours of the night. Shelley and I called it 11:30, and I think it was still going on at about 2. So it was a great day, and very, very happy for that. All 4 of my kids are married. All 4 of my kids own houses. They are all doing great. So we're pretty blessed.
So I have a happy $10 next week. We're having the Gurney Journey 2.0 to honor the memory of Brian Gurney, our nephew. We have a scholarship established through the Burlington Edison Alumni Foundation. What's really, really exciting is this is going to be the last event because we'll have enough funds to endow it through the Burlington Edison Alumni Foundation. It's really been a journey. We've gotten great support in what we've been able to give the scholarship. We started in 2017, so we gave the scholarship to 2 great kids, and we'll just do this in perpetuity with the funds from the endowment. Brian was a great kid, and after he fell, I ended my meeting every time with be joyful, smile, and do something kind for someone, and you'll have a good day.
I have a happy 20 for the finishing of the bocce court in the park, thanks to Rotary and the Sedro Woolley Advisory Board and those hardworking boys that we have at the city of Sedro Woolley. Those guys are amazing. Just have I think I have to do some markings just for the play, but we've got some signage coming and it'll be ready to play on tomorrow if anybody wants to play. And we have our open house at the Senior Center from 4 to 6 with music at 3 to 4.
I got a happy 5 just one, I'm just happy. Lots of things are kind of coming together with, in my life, and they had fallen apart back then, but they're all coming together. So yeah, I have a roof over my head, and that's the most important thing. And I've had so much help from family and friends and from a lot of you, so I'm happy about that. And then I just wanted one more thing. If anybody would like to see the rotary wheels in the front of the stage during the show, I could really use some help getting them there. So.
I got to go up here for this. I got a happy $4. Our program today had this little booklet, which I opened up and immediately saw, this is about Northern State Hospital, Dr. Charles Jones. Who remembers Doc Jones? Oh, then not too many. Well, this might be interesting. At that time, we were trying to recite the four-way test. And Dr. Jones, he was the head man up at Northern State Hospital. He said, I don't know what's wrong with you people. She said, all you got to do is remember it's 2 is-its and 2 will-its. You'll never forget it.
I have a happy 5. So Ellen just breezed over it, but I really want to emphasize the 40th anniversary that's happening tomorrow. Music is from 3 to 4, and then there'll be socializing and whatnot from 4 to 6. And the reason that I'm bringing it up is because we have this beautiful partnership, the city does, with the county, and we supply the building, they supply the food, and Ellen supplies everything else. And I'm telling you, she works very, very hard over there. She's well respected. She's been there many years. I know she's looking forward to her retirement. We hate to see her go. But Meals on Wheels, which is vital to this community, that's all part of the community center. And for some people, that's the only meal that they get is lunchtime at the community center. So it's a wonderful, wonderful service. And I hope that you will come out tomorrow and support it. At least come in and just say hello, because they deserve it. Thank you.
All right, looks like that's it. Thank you. Now time for early leavers, but we have a guest here going to be talking about the Northern State Hospital. Joellen or Christine, which of you is introducing? We got our introductions coming up here.
She didn't want to fall for it. Okay, I'm really excited for today's program today. Amy Muia. I knew I was going to mess it up. I'm sorry. So Amy is the co-founder of the New Earth Recovery, a nonprofit operating 6 recovery homes in Skagit County for those that are recovering from drug and alcohol addiction. So we definitely appreciate your work there in the county. And she also holds a master's degree in teaching English to speakers of other languages and a master's in fine arts and creative writing from SPU, and also a postgraduate certificate in writing literary fiction, from the University of Washington. I'm going to have her come in and help my 6th graders become amazing writers. And her stories and articles have appeared in literary journals across the United States. She's also one of the original teaching writers for underground writing. She facilitates writing workshops with students in Skagit County juvenile detention facilities. And then she also does a lot of work for Northern State. She has researched Northern State Hospital at the state archives, and through extensive interviews, she wrote the history of Northern State. You can find more information at northernstatehospital.org. And she authored the Northern State Hospital Guidebook, designed for the interpretive science of the Northern State campus. I don't know if you've ever been out there, but it's really cool to go and check out. And she also co-curated the Northern State exhibit at the Sedro Woolley Museum. So for the past several years, she's served as the moderator for Northern State Hospital Public History Days. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Amy to the podium.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. I love coming to the service clubs and just seeing what you all are about. I'm Amy Muia. As Christine said, my day job is the co-founder of New Earth Recovery. We've got 6 recovery homes, currently building number 7 in the middle of a capital campaign, so it's exciting days. I'm also an author and having a book coming out September 15 with the University of Georgia Press. There's a little card on your table. I'm having a reading in October at Mount Vernon City Library. So if you like history, if you like to read, I hope you might come out. I think it'll be a pretty good program. But what brings me here today is to talk about Northern State Hospital. I love talking about Northern State. And what I want to present today is Northern State through the decades, Northern State through the years. So let's start around 1910 when Northern State Hospital was new. Is it the right button? Okay. Okay. There it goes. All right. So Northern State Hospital was officially established in 1909. And it was a farming extension of Western State Hospital because the soil down at Fort Steilacoom was very poor and they had a hard time feeding their growing number of patients. So in 1910, a very small group of patients was sent up from Western State Hospital to help clear the land. And the superintendent at the time remembered that they were all men and they were all of what he called the lumberjack type. And I don't think we can really appreciate how frontier-like it was around here in 1909 when that idea began. Miles and miles of trees, a few small family homesteads. Washington had only become a state in 1889. That was only 20 years before Northern State opened. So this really was a very frontier place at the time. And the very first structures at Northern State were built over on the farm side. It was temporary housing for workers. And also the very first burial in 1911 when a storm knocked down a shelter and killed a patient. His name was Hugh Garrity, and he was from Ireland. He was the very first person buried at Northern State Hospital. And the first half of the main hospital, called Denny Building later, or the admin building, was finished in 1912. It was one of the first permanent buildings. And this is a photograph of opening day, May 28, 1912. And here's what the Denny Hospital looks like today from above. In 1915, it officially became known as Northern State Hospital because the previous name was the Western State Hospital Farm for the Harmless Insane. That was the name. And eventually it would become the largest hospital in the state of Washington. It served all of the northwestern counties of the state. Does anybody want to guess at its height how many patients were at Northern? 2,200 patients in residence. And many of those patients worked in occupational therapy programs that helped to sustain the hospital. Sewing, cooking, weaving, canning, carpentry, painting, working on the farm. And patients came with real skills and those things were put to use. And you can see some of the items that were made by patients if you go to the Sedro Woolley Museum and check out the Northern State Hospital exhibit. So people often ask, why would someone come to Northern State Hospital? And there were lots and lots of reasons why somebody might be sent there. And some of those reasons we simply would not institutionalize a person today. But back then it could be a psychiatric diagnosis, it could be postpartum depression, it could be what they called religious excitement, it could be older people who were suffering from dementia, or it could have been somebody who simply lost confidence following a bankruptcy. That happened a lot in the Depression era, where men would fall into a depression having lost their business. So Northern State, it has a very complicated story, like a lot of large institutions. There was wonderful care alongside stories of neglect and abuse. So people got better and they sent letters of gratitude to the doctors and nurses. And at the same time, newspapers picked up on scandals. Some people suffered a lot and other people were just devastated when the hospital closed. So I think the temptation that we have is to either remember the hospital with too much nostalgia. We imagine that it was like a utopia where people lived in peace and worked in happiness, or to remember it as a terrible place where vulnerable people were tortured and thrown away. But it's really neither. Northern State was a human place. It was flawed human beings taking care of other flawed human beings with the knowledge that they had at the time. So the story of Northern State is just as varied as the individuals who lived and worked there. So many of the buildings at Northern State were built in the 1910s. There was a lot of construction going on, and Spanish colonial revival architecture was very popular in the early 1900s, that stucco with the red clay roofs. And the idea was to house patients in structures that were fire resistant instead of constructing with wood. And so even though they look a little bit out of place, I think in the rainy Northwest, they are strikingly beautiful. So this is the hub or the chapel, and it was built in 1916, and it's more of a Gothic style. If you've driven around the campus, this is the building that probably really catches your eye. So here's a letter from March 1914, very early days, from Dr. James Winfield Dowdy. He was the hospital superintendent, and he was writing to the superintendent of Western State Hospital. And he says, I want to report to you that the patients sent from your institution arrived safely and seem well contented. I've put some of them to work outside, have had trouble with only one. He's been very much disturbed. The first night he started to dissect his bed and break out the windows. Last night he was restrained, but got out of his restraint and started in on his bed again. The other men are doing well. I certainly appreciate your care and consideration in selecting so good a bunch of men to assist me in my work here. The work on the land especially was slow in the wet weather. I suppose, however, we have no reason to complain as we've had an excellent spring so far. So you can see in the early days, there was quite a bit of cooperation between patients and community workers in building and setting up the hospital. So by 1920s, there were already 1,000 patients on record. You can see how fast it grew. Some of those were in residence, some were on parole, some were escapees who were technically still committed on paper. And there was a lot of building in the 1920s. A lot of the wards were built at that time. The powerhouse with the big smokestack that you see, the morgue, which is no longer standing. The gatehouse that you see when you drive in was built in the 20s. And the beautiful superintendent mansion, which is no longer standing. This is where Dr. Jones lived. Before this time, the superintendent lived in an apartment on the second floor of the hospital, and staff lived on the wards with their patients. And you can imagine how hard that was. The superintendent always complained to the state about how hard it was to recruit good staff because the working conditions were very difficult. And one interesting thing about Northern State compared to other state hospitals, there were no fences. And so escapes were not uncommon at all. Patients occasionally, actually often, simply walked away, and they would later be found upriver in Sedro Woolley, sometimes as far away as Seattle. Sometimes a neighboring farm would find someone asleep in their barn. Sometimes patients would call the hospital and ask for a ride back because once they got out, they felt anxious. So there was a lot of freedom for most people, as much freedom as could be given. The 1920s was a very flourishing time, especially on the farm. Northern State had a prize-winning dairy herd. Here's one example, a 4-year-old cow named Skagit Wayne Artis III broke all the state records by producing 753 pounds of milk and 30 pounds of butter in 7 days. So the 1920s was also a time of scandal, and the Seattle Star carried the story of a cook who mailed moldy food to the governor because he wanted to show the poor quality of food that was given to patients. In 1921, there was a grand inquiry by the governor, Governor Hart, into state mental hospitals to investigate reports of mistreatment and neglect. So the committee ultimately found out that the allegations were mostly false, but they did admit that the ward attendants were not of the best caliber in those days. So again, a mixed bag of good things and hard things. Here's a humorous Courier Times article, September 1926. Husband accuses wife of insanity, asks for hearing. A family squabble in the Bartholomew family resulted today in a filing by B.L. Bartholomew of a complaint in Superior Court alleging that his wife Anna is insane and asking that she have a hearing in Superior Court and be sent to the asylum. It is understood that Mrs. Bartholomew holds similar ideas concerning her husband. A jury will hear the case in the near future. The couple live in a fine home on Cook Road. So the 1930s brought about some important additions. Trevennan Hall was built in 1938 for nurses, including student nurses, and they live there under the watchful eye of the matron. Though we have stories of nurses sneaking out after curfew and following the train tracks to Sedro Woolley to visit their sweethearts. The other half of the big main hospital was finished. And in the 1930s, the nursing training program in connection with University of Washington was begun, and Northern State became the premier place in the state for psychiatric nursing training. So one new program in the 1930s also, it was an experiment. It was called the Narcotic Farm Colony. And the state wanted to treat people that were addicted to usually morphine or other narcotics. But Dr. Dowdy, the superintendent, he had no sympathy whatsoever for alcoholics or people in recovery. And the patients themselves did not want to be in an asylum with mental patients. And they often simply walked away, and eventually the program failed. But it does give me some joy that some years later, after Northern State closed, an inpatient treatment center moved in. So the original vision for helping people who are struggling with addiction happened anyway. In the 1930s, the baseball field, the bleachers were installed, and the Northern State baseball team, first it was the Stars, then the Indians, was born, and patients followed their team with loyalty and with gusto. Actually, photographs of patients are very rare, but some of the people here where it says White Sox, that was a patient team, the White Sox and the Giants. And so some of these gentlemen were patients at Northern State. Tuberculosis was a very big concern in the 1930s. Did anyone remember their grandparents talking about that, about TB? And so they isolated patients in special wards at Northern State, and patients and staff all had to have lots and lots and lots of x-rays. And men's occupational therapy took off in the 1930s. There was a mattress factory, a shoe shop, basket factory, a print shop to produce the Northern State News, and woodworking, of course. So one darker thread in the 1930s was the practice of sterilizations, and that was part of the eugenics movement, which was happening all over the country. And so the superintendent would write reports to the Board of Health recommending that people be sterilized. And around the country, people were sterilized against their will, but at Northern State, consent was required by either the patient or a family member. And so there was a lot of effort made to persuade people. But here's a nice note of thanks from the 1930s. Dr. D, I'm writing you to let you know I arrived home safely. I want to thank you and everyone at the hospital for the fine treatment I received. I'm enjoying good health, and everyone seems glad to have me back. I will write again soon. Yours truly, H.G. So the 1940s, of course, were the war years, and it was very hard to find staff, hard to find attendants, hard to find doctors. And then men began returning from the war, and a lot of them went to state hospitals on their way to veterans facilities. Rations were stored in the basement. Gas masks were issued by the Department of Defense. The hospital ran out of knitting needles because there were so many women patients who were knitting items for soldiers. And it was just a very busy time at Northern State. It was bursting at the seams. And the superintendent always wrote to the state and complained about overcrowding. So people often ask what kinds of treatments were done at Northern State. Northern State was considered the cutting edge at the time. And even though today we look at some of those treatments quite differently, some of them we would not do as often as they were done. But the primary treatments were work therapy, electroshock therapy, hydrotherapy, which is baths and showers, sleep therapy, and insulin coma therapy. And this is the insulin room in the late 1930s, where they would give patients large doses of insulin and it would precipitate a seizure and a coma. There was a smaller window of time when a limited number of lobotomies were done in the 1940s and 50s, although Northern State was not a lobotomy mill. It was a small window of time, but the idea that mental illness could be cured through surgery, it was wildly exciting. It was wildly hopeful at the time, but later it fell out of favor. It probably did more harm than good. And maybe some of you know the sad story of Rosemary Kennedy, who's a good example of a lobotomy gone wrong. So before psychiatric medications came on the scene, trouble was dealt with through negotiation, through persuasion and conversation, some restraint, but nurses who worked there in the earlier years said negotiation was all we had. Speaking of Dr. Jones, in 1950, a very young doctor, he was just 32 years old, if you can imagine, 32 years old in charge of a large state hospital, he became the superintendent. And in 1950, there were 13 doctors for 2,175 patients. So if you do the math, that's one doctor for every 167 patients. So Dr. Jones wanted to address that understaffing, and he asked the state for more money, and then you saw that the doctor-patient ratio began to improve. Under Dr. Jones, the farm, the occupational therapy were thriving. It was just a bustling place. There were dances and movies and church groups, volunteers and concerts and activities. Every ward had its own radio. 16mm movies were brought in to the wards for patients who couldn't go out. Social work was expanded, so there were social workers helping patients find a place to go. And patients began to be released a lot more frequently than they had in the past. In the early years, people would stay for decades. You would go in, often you would not come out, you would pass away at Northern State. But in the 50s, you began to see more of a turnover. And then also, psychiatric drugs came on the scene, and then even more people were able to go home and be released. Although there were still quite a few people who would never be able to go home, and they considered Northern State their home. The main hospital had a suite for surgeries, it had a dental clinic, it had x-ray facilities, it even had a beauty shop. They called it cosmetic therapy, where patients could come and get their hair done. For the most part, my understanding is that the community was very embracing of Northern State Hospital. Community groups would come every week to serve the patients and volunteer. The Lago Rodeo Parade would always do a loop through Northern State so that the patients could see the floats. Sedro Woolley was known for the state hospital, which maybe carries a little bit of a reputation, but my sense is that people in the community were very proud of Northern State, and I still feel like they are. The 1960s continued to see advances in treatment, a lot of change in philosophy. The word insane was no longer used. It was a mental illness. People were hospitalized. They were not committed. And everything began to move away from the whole institutional model of treatment and toward medication and discharging. And I've heard more than one person say the reason that Northern State closed was because it was too successful. And I think that might be true in part. In 1962, the Douglas Building was built, and in many ways it symbolized the changing time. You can see the difference in architecture. Some people still lament it, this big, ugly 1960s building slapped right on the front of the beautiful grand entrance of the hospital. But at the time, it was very cutting edge. Now there were televisions in the wards, and patients began coming on psychedelic drug trips. They came because they were high on LSD. They had a quarter-way program, and that meant that patients could live on campus, but they could work in the community. But in some ways, life at Northern State had not changed that much, as we see, and here's a quote from a 1960s Northern State article. "These evenings when indoors seems real cozy, our group is occupied in many ways. Reading the daily papers, viewing TV, playing a game of cards, knitting, writing letters home, mending, washing, ironing. We have representatives at choir practice, the motion picture show, the dances, and at Mass and chapel service." In the 1970s, there were rumblings already in the late 60s about closing. The country was moving away from the idea of institutionalizing, and at the same time, the state of Washington was in a terrible budget crisis, and Governor Dan Evans saw an opportunity to save the state some money. And his idea was that people could be released from Northern State and go to these small satellite mental health centers around the area. And so he vetoed the appropriation that would have kept the hospital open. And when people caught wind of it, there was a general outcry. Does anyone remember that time? Yeah, a few of you do remember. High school students went, they protested at the Capitol. "Have a heart, Governor Dan," they said on their signs. People wrote letters. People were scared and they were angry and they were sad. But by July of 1973, There were only 194 patients left, and the state closed the hospital in September of 1973. The patients, some of them went to Eastern State, some went to Western State, some went to nursing homes, which were not at all equipped to care for them. Some went to families, and some were given bus tickets and just sent to Seattle, where they became part of the unhoused population there. The saddest part is that the money that was saved by the closing was supposed to be used for these small mental health centers, and none of those, or very few of them, were ever made or built. And today, people still in the community, when I talk to people, they talk about the closing with so much sadness. It was more than just so many people losing their jobs. It was regarded as a place that we as a community needed, and a place who were struggling, who had nowhere to go. So I will just end with this, a quote.